G'day, boys. Welcome to the Not Game of the Year Awards 2019. This is the earliest I think I've ever done a Not Game of the Year video. First up, I just want to apologize for the audio quality. Moved house, didn't bring a microphone cord. Bought a microphone, not a microphone cord. Rookie error. I'll just get straight into it. I've kind of played a lot of games this year that were either AAA or that were big long games, and I played them for a long time. So they didn't really fit on this list, and I thought, like, fuck, this list is gonna suck this year. And I was like going through Steam, and I actually realized this might be the best Not Game of the Year awards ever. So I'm gonna go through because they're not never in any order, but so the rules are. Not Game of the Year, they have to not have appeared on any other publication's Game of the Year lists. The test I do for that is just Google Game of the Year and then the game's name, and if nothing's on the first Google page, we're golden. Unfortunately, this first one is this is probably my game of the year, but it was on a podcast game of the year list, so it's kind of annoying. But the first one here, honorable mention, The Friends of Ringo Ishikawa. I really love this game. The writing is amazing. So basically, it's presents itself in the vein of like a River City Ransom style beat 'em up game, but then it really is a life sim, and it's like a hardcore life sim. It doesn't hold your hand. It really wants you to experiment and discover things. I think it's this really beautiful story about that weird time at the end of high school when everyone suddenly has this realization that holy shit, things are never going to be like this again, and everyone's simultaneously like wanting to look to the future and also kind of look to the past. And it's about this guy, Ringo Ishikawa, and kind of like he's a bit of a delinquent, his teachers are like, pull yourself together and go to university. And then his friends, he's trying to, in a weird way, he's the guy who's trying to hold his friends back. It's kind of interesting. I don't want to spoil it too much, but I really love this game, and I really think more people should play it. It's fantastic. It's on Switch. It works really well on Switch. It's a recommendation, but with a caveat that if you're having trouble, like look up Steam forums and things like that, because it is the kind of game that you might need to look things up and like consult the community a little bit. Next up, East Shade. It's no Passepartout the Starving Artist, but it's kind of like an open world traveling painter game where you go around and you'll take quests for people who are like, can you paint this beautiful sunset for me and stuff. People compare it to like Morrowind or something. I never played Morrowind, but I'd say it's almost more like Metroidvania in that you're doing quests to get like traversal unlocks to let you get to new areas and stuff. So that's the one thing that kind of is a bit crap about it is the painting is basically just photography. You just kind of like set up a canvas, you look at what you want to paint, and then it paints it for you, which I don't know how else they would have done that and still had it have like a serious tone, but it would have been nice to have a little bit more of a painting mechanic there. I don't know why I put this on the list, but the open world game, it's a joke. It's like just talking about how like the mini map is the game in open world games, and it just zooms into the mini map, and you're just doing quests, but there's not really any context for them, and it's a bit like at first the joke is a bit like, haha, isn't that so funny? Like open world games are all the same. And then the more I thought about it, the more the game kind of falls apart a little bit, but I don't know if it's intentional where I kind of played it for about half an hour and then thought like, oh, but the context of this is fun. Like I am enjoying myself playing this game, not just because it's a stupid Skinner box, but because the context is funny. And then kind of thinking about game design as a whole, like went fucking galaxy brain for a minute and just went like, wait a minute, maybe the context is all that matters when it comes to game mechanics, Maybe the most abstract game mechanic that is kind of shitty and repetitive or a Skinner box, it makes sense in a certain context, like in Assassin's Creed. I don't know. It made me think while I was playing it. It's a little bit meditative. This has been on like a bajillion game of the year lists, but honorable mention to Hypnospace Outlaw. I don't know how to explain it really. You're like a cop on the internet in 1999, basically, and you're having to like hit people with like DMCA takedowns and stuff for using copyrighted content. It's very funny. If I don't know if this game is really for anyone under the age of maybe like 25. You might just be like, I don't get it. Like, why does everything look crap? But it's like one of the few games where it is it's like a stuff game. I remember someone describing a game as a stuff game once, where it's like it just needed a lot of stuff in it, and it's definitely a game that I would have, if I'd been making it 2 years into development, I would have still been asking myself, is this fun? Or maybe it just needs more stuff, And that's probably really rambling and stupid, but whatever. Okay, so those are honorable mentions. These are the actual not game of the years. Again, these are good games that no one called game of the year. First up, Juicy Realm. Juicy Realm is a roguelike twin stick top-down shooter with an amazing art style. There's so many like guns and abilities and characters and bosses. There's so much to this game, and I really really like it. It's came out on PC last year, as in 2018, but it should have been early access really, because I can't think it came out. People gave it a lot of like bad reviews. You can see on the Steam page. Then over the next year, they updated it. It's almost a completely different game at this point. And then they released it on Switch this year, and it's bam. This is like the perfect Switch game. It's fantastic. The Eternal Castle. So this game is, I think I love the story behind this game more than I like the actual game. I think the game is really interesting. It is a cinematic platformer in the vein of Another World or Flashback, but it's kind of positions itself as if it is a remastered version of a game from 1987, which it isn't. It's all made up, but like there was this kind of like almost like a Blair Witch style like campaign of like uploading files called the Eternal Castle to like the Internet Archive and stuff. I just find that really interesting because in a year where I was looking for like something a little bit Bandersnatch like that, and which is a weird kind of thing that I think everyone's gotten over, but I'm like, there's something like about Bandersnatch just like stuck in my head. I didn't think it was good, but something about like the lone guy making a game in the 80s just really like stuck in my head. And this game like really, it gave me that feeling of like playing this bizarre kind of arcane game that has, maybe it's a little bit cursed or something. I don't know. There's some things in it that just like I really, really like, just moments. I think overall the game's a little bit uneven, but there's some moments that are really interesting. And the graphics, obviously, it's just this like really intriguing art style. There's just this one moment I had where I got attacked by like three guys, and I like had to beat them up in this really scrappy like melee brawl, and I think I had like a knife or a bat or something. And at the end of it, they all died, and my character just like stopped, like kind of slumped over for a minute with his hands on his knees, and he's just like panting. And I'd never seen that in a game. The exhaustion from it, like killing three guys with your bare hands. I'd never seen that in a game before. Next up is Disc Creatures. Disc Creatures is like alternate universe Pokemon where just imagine like every little detail of Pokemon, someone flipped a coin while they were making it and then chose something else. So it's like, oh, instead of Pokeballs, you have like creature discs, and they're stored in a disc. Yeah, it's a really interesting kind of game because in a year where we had a Pokemon game that seemed like a lot of people really loved it, but a lot of people, myself included, kind of looked at it and went like, oh, this isn't for me anymore. They're never going to update this to be more, I guess, inclusive of the people who grew up with this as kids. This is still a game for children. That's fine, but there's enough Pokemon games out there that are very similar that I don't need to play one again. But Disc Creatures, there's enough different about it. It's very similar in a lot of other ways that just like hits that perfect balance of like, hey, did you want to play a new Pokemon game this year? This is the one you should play. It's very Pokemon. I've heard a few people say it's closer to like Dragon Quest Monsters, I think it's called. The battles are like 3-on-3. I think the battles are maybe the thing that I like the most, in that there's just a little bit more you have to think about. If you just go in and just attack, you'll die. It's not like groundbreaking. Obviously, it is trying to be a Pokemon game, but it's very interesting, and it seems like the kind of game where someone took something very popular and went, but what if I just tweaked this, and this? Then it would be perfect for me. Next up, Aquila Nox. If you don't know the story behind this game, YouTube channel Thin Matrix has been for like the last 3 years or something. I've been doing weekly devlogs and these kind of like slice of life almost video diaries as he makes this game. He built the engine himself. It's just really interesting to go and watch those videos. He's like a really charming guy, and he seems like he lives this like perfect life. Yeah, this game intrigued me because I'm a big fan of kind of like sandbox life sim games. And I mean like life sim is in like simulating life forms and ecology and ecosystems and things. That's exactly what this is. It is similar to something like Sim Life, but obviously 3D, and maybe it's not as focused on like creating bizarre creatures as it is creating like a nice garden for yourself using genetics and things like that. It's a very I came from work and I just want to achieve something in half an hour game. And finally, this next one, Shovel Knight, the King of Cards. It came out late enough in the year that no one's put it on their Game of the Year list. So I think I got it on a technicality there. Shovel Knight, King of Cards. So I bought the Shovel Knight Treasure Trove, never played it. I don't really like Shovel Knight. I don't really like platformers and stuff. I don't know why I bought it. But this came out and I heard there was like a little mini game in it or something that was like cards. So I just, it was a free update to the Treasure Trove. I played it and was just hooked. I think the card game is best described as a better version of Triple Triad from Final Fantasy VIII. It's just a really, yeah, really interesting kind of tactical card game that you play. But what I like most about this, I thought that the game was going to be just a card game in the vein of something like the Pokemon card game on Game Boy Color, where it's like you're walking around and talking to people, but in the vein, in the Shovel Knight world, it is just a platformer. And then in like every map you get to, there'll be like a tavern, and you'll go to the tavern, and it'll be like a good half an hour that you'll be there playing card games, maybe an hour if you're no good at it. And so it's like these, 3-4 hours of like platforming, or probably not that long, but 2 hours of platforming and stuff throughout this map, and then you'll get to a tavern and then play cards for like half an hour. It's a really weird concept that actually worked. It's maybe what I needed to make me like Shovel Knight is every hour or two stop for half an hour and go play cards, because I think I just get fatigued by just doing platforming, and knowing that the card game is the thing I came here for. So when I'm dying in a level over and over that's platforming, I go, yeah, but I want to get to the card games. So I really liked it. Of all the games, of these 5 games, I think the ones that people are most likely to like 100% be like, yeah, this is the broadest appeal would be like Shovel Knight, King of Cards, followed by Juicy Realm, and then Aquila Nox, Disc Creatures, and then finally Eternal Castle. Eternal Castle is you've got to really want to like it, but it's rewarding if you do get into it. Of the honorable mentions, I think they're all really great. The open world game, is free, so just go play that if you want a little kind of like jokey laugh at AAA games. Hypnospace Outlaw is maybe the coolest one there that I think most people would really like, but maybe you wouldn't if you're a bit younger. Eastshade is a pretty broad game in terms of its appeal. I think anyone could really like that game. Yeah, look, that's it. I mean, what a year. These are just like indie games and stuff that I played. I played a lot of like I played Control, I played Devil May Cry, and those were both brilliant. But yeah, it was just I really thought 2019 was a bit of a like a year, like it's just a lot of okay games came out, a lot of 7s out of 10s if you're gonna go by IGN scale. But fucking like yeah, wow, these are all really good games, and yeah, like I'm just looking at this list and like in previous not Game of the Year awards, I've just looked at the list and thought like, oh look, I was trying to fill it, and yeah, maybe I enjoyed that game, but I really like I loved all of these games. So yeah, I'm really happy with this year. So I hope you had a great 2019. I hope you have a great 2020, and I'll see you in a year, I guess. Bye.